All right, so here's a video on setting up a VPN and black hole DNS, but mainly a VPN using WireGuard on Oracle's cloud. So Oracle Cloud is just one of the many cloud providers, but the only major benefit I see to using them is that they do, at least for us, I mean for like a student, is that they have this entire free tier. So many of the other ones have free tiers, but I'll explain why. So if you just search for Oracle Cloud, it's really just oracle.com, and that'll take you to their Oracle Cloud page. You're going to want to head to the sign in, and you're going to need to sign up. So you'll have to fill out your information. I recommend you use a personal email here because this is going to be your account, and so you don't really want it tied to the school account. But you may have to enter a credit card, but as I'll point out in a bit, you won't get charged for anything. And if you stick to their free tier and you can downgrade your account to a free account, you'll never have to pay anything. So I'll just close that. So after you've signed up, you'll be able to log in and see your home page here. You'll notice here I'm already on the free tier account, and so I have to upgrade to a paid account. I'm not going to do that, obviously, so just to show you that you can stick entirely to free and you'll never have to pay anything. They'll limit you, so even if you wanted to, you wouldn't be able to start up any sort of service that would cost you money. So you can rest easy. It's going to be free entirely. So some of the limitations here, let me show you. Always free is you do get some 5 certificate authorities, but what we're interested in is compute here. So we're going to be limited to these small servers. They are using the VM standard E21 micro, which I'll show you in a bit what that means. You can also technically use some ARM servers, though I have heard that these are a little less reliable, meaning that Oracle tends to shut your stuff down because they need these for paying customers, you know. And also you're limited to certain regions, and you're also limited in terms of how much space you have. So all these links I'll have in the assignment page, so you can peruse these and look through them if you want to, but just so you're aware of some of the limitations you'll have. But one of the main reason that we are going to use Oracle is because you do get one server for free. So one tiny server, and it's free. So the negative there is that technically it is free, but Oracle will sometimes shut down your server because they need that capacity for people that actually pay money. So you'll get it free most of the time. Sometimes you'll notice that it's not working, and you'll have to come back in here and just turn it back on. But it's a mild inconvenience for free, right? So the first thing we need to do, getting started, is setting up a network. So we have our Oracle Cloud, and then we'll have to go to the network. So in order to get to that, these are just things that I've used before, is network. So we're going to head over to Virtual Cloud Networks, or VCN for short. Every cloud provider will call it something different. So on the home page here for Virtual Cloud Networks, we're going to head to Actions and start the wizard. Wizard will just simplify it for us. And we're going to just leave it at the first one. We're going to create this virtual cloud network with internet connectivity, meaning that we're going to have our internal servers, but anything that we put in a public subnet will have direct internet connection, which is what we want, because we want to be able to connect from the outside, from the network, from the internet, I mean, to our VPN server, right? So let's start the wizard there. And there's just a couple things we need to fill out. So what is this warning? Nothing. Just you can make this. That's all it's saying. So we'll call this our default VCN. You can call it whatever you like. That's just what I'm calling it. Feel free to change these CIDR blocks. These hopefully you can do this now. You can read this and make those changes. But this is just the default CIDR that they give you, and you'll have to configure public and private. So these are again the default public and private that they give you. Feel free to leave these as is. If you really wanted to, you could technically change this. Like if I wanted to say 10.1 / 18, for example, I can do that, you know, define however you like. So nothing wrong with the defaults, however. We're not going to worry about any tags. You can just leave that as is and hit next. And it just goes over what it's going to make for you. So it's making a public subnet here, and that's going to have your public servers. It's making a main CIDR block that contains all of your subnets within, It has a private subnet, which I don't see it on here somewhere. It has an internet gateway, which is going to be your connectivity to the outside, and it's used by the public subnet. And I'm pointing this out because we're going to use this later. Has a couple of rules here, and we're going to come back in here and modify some of these rules for what we're going to set up in a bit. And ingress, wait, what is this? Oh, this is for the private, yeah. For the private subnet, notice how there is no incoming traffic allowed, only technically for pinging, but even then it looks like it just says that it's blocked. And then for the public subnet, which is this one here, it allows all connectivity for port 22 if we need to log in via SSH to our like Linux servers, for example. And then egress is outgoing, so coming from the server to head out, it allows all connectivity to anywhere, so basically full internet access. And what about route tables? So this is just showing if you need to get to any destination, like any address on the internet, use the internet gateway. So use this connection here. All right, so create that. Shouldn't take too long. And yep, it's all done. So let's hit view, and it looks like everything's good to go. So we can take care of this portion right now, so we don't need to come back. But if we're gonna deploy piHole and piVPN, there are two ports that are gonna need to be opened. So if we head over to, I think, security here and default security list, yeah, the default security list here, this is security rules. This is the list of connections that are allowed to this particular virtual cloud network, which is where we're going to have our server. So we're going to need to add incoming connections that are going to be allowed. The source here is going to be anywhere because we want to connect to this from the internet, right? The first one is going to be TCP. You can leave the source range as blank, and then the destination is going to be 80. piHole has a web interface, and in order to reach it, to configure it basically, we need to open that port. Now when it's coming from the internet, the ports tend to be randomized, so that's why you're leaving source port as blank, which means any port, but it's only going to be allowed to connect if the destination is port 80. So we can call this piHole web GUI. That's just so we know what this is for, and that's add that one. And then the other one we need to allow is again from anywhere, and this one is for piVPN. Source again anywhere because it can be randomized, but the destination is 51820, and that is the default port for piVPN. And then the protocol there needs to change to UDP, so I'll call this piVPN WireGuard. So you can change this if you plan on changing this within WireGuard. It doesn't have to be the default, but that's just the default port that WireGuard uses in piVPN. So UDP, source anywhere, destination 51820, and add that one. So now you should have, where is it? May need to refresh here. Yeah, there we go. So now in our default security list for our VCN, we have allow port 22 for SSH, allow port 80, and allow port 51820 UDP. So now we're okay to set up the server. So if we go back up to search and head over to instances, so we're going to just search for instances, click instances, and we're going to create a new instance, and that is what they refer to as a server. So call this whatever you like. I'm going to call this piHole piVPN. Leave things at the defaults there, so you're in the free tier, so it should be I think everybody's going to be in the same. So US San Jose, which is the US West location. We are going to change the image here just to make it a bit easier for us to work with. Click Ubuntu, scroll down a bit, and then just choose the latest one that is free. So I'm going to choose Canonical Ubuntu 24.4 and select that. And then the shape, make sure that you're leaving that at the default that says always free eligible. So that is the VM standard E21 micro. And the limitation there is just one CPU core, 1 GB of memory, and half a gigabyte of bandwidth, which is more than we need. So don't worry about that. It's tiny, but it's free, right? And next, security, we're going to leave that as is. Ideally, you want to enable all the security, but we're trying to stay free. So VNIC, this is the virtual network card for your server. We'll just call this the VPN NIC, I guess. Again, it's just a name. It doesn't matter too much. We're going to select the existing virtual cloud network, the one that we created. Existing subnet, the public one. Primary VNIC IP, automatically assign. This way it gets a public IP address, automatically assign a public IP. And this SSH keys, we're going to need the private key in order to connect to our server. So make sure you download the private key. You don't need the public. You can always get that at any time. But the private key is a one-time only thing. So when you download it, you cannot download it again. So if you lose this key, you'll have to basically wipe out the server and start over. If that was like a production server, that would be terrible. Boot volume, you don't need to change anything here. It's just going to use up all the available space, which is 46 gigs, which is more than we need. But again, we're just trying to use our one free server. And that should be it. So Ubuntu 24.4, E21 micro, and we downloaded our key, so we're all good to go. Hit create. You just created a compute. Yeah, that was easy. Great. Okay. This should take just a few seconds here, maybe a minute or so to create the instance. But while we're doing that, let me explain how to connect to it. So in Windows, well, they do have this page here, which again, I'll have linked for you, but they do have how to connect to an instance from various different systems. So if you have a Linux machine, or if you're connecting to a Linux machine, connecting to a Windows machine, and then if you're connecting to a Linux instance using PuTTY. So if you have Windows, they do recommend you use PuTTY. I prefer to use this guy here, MOBA Xterm, because it has SSH, FTP, RDP. It has a lot of protocols, so you can connect to various different services from one application. So if you head to MOBA Xterm, search for this, you'll see this icon, and download the portable edition. You don't have to install anything. So this would be if you're on a Windows computer, and then you don't have to do any of these extra steps that I'm going to show you. So if we click to connecting to a Linux instance, they do have from a Windows system here, and these are the kind of the instructions that you need to follow for PuTTY, or if you're using PowerShell. But I'm going to just follow the ones for Mac, which are kind of similar. So if you need help with this, just let me know. It's not too bad. So here we go, connecting from a Mac OS system. The main thing here is that they do want you to set permissions on your key file. And this is basically Linux permissions to say that the user and only the user has permissions to read and only read this file. So the user cannot modify or delete this file, and other users in other groups and guest users or anonymous users cannot touch this file whatsoever. So it's very secure, right? So if you look at my downloads folder, I have my key here. Let me delete this other stuff. So yeah, whoops. My key here at the top. So I need to open up a terminal, and I'm going to do chmod 400. And then on a Mac, it's pretty easy because you can just drag in the file. Whoops, I forgot a space. And it'll put the full path to that file. On MOBA Xterm, I don't think you'll have to do this, but if you're on PowerShell, you'll have to navigate to your full path to the file, which I think you can find if you just like hold Shift and right-click the file. One of the options that comes up on a Windows machine is to show you like the path to the file, so you can copy that. But so I've modified the permissions to the key file, so now I should be able to connect. And if I head back to my instances, that one's complete. So let me go to details here. And you'll see that it has the public IP address here. So that's what we want. And the command here is ssh-i and then the key file. So I'm going to drag that in again. And then the username, which is Ubuntu @ and the IP address. So that's the full command there, ssh-i, the key file, and you may have to put the full path to the key file, username, so Ubuntu @ IP address, and the username is specified here. So if it's a different type of instance, like a Oracle Linux or CentOS or something else, the username will change. So for Ubuntu, they just put Ubuntu. So when you press enter, it's going to ask you, do you know what you're connecting to? You're just going to hit yes, I know what I'm doing. And you'll notice that it changes. You get a nice screen here, and your username is now updated to Ubuntu at the name of your server. So that's how you know that you're connected to your server. The first thing we could do on any new machine is run updates. So sudo apt get update-y and sudo apt get upgrade-y. So I'm running all of the updates and upgrades for this machine. So it's going to go online and pull any of the latest updates available for this machine. Anytime you're setting up a new machine, this is the first thing you want to do, just in case you install some apps and things break. Your updates were taken care of first instead of later, because the updates may break stuff, but it's just a good habit to get into. While that's running, let me explain what we'll have to do. So first thing we're going to do is install piHole. So piHole.net, click that install button there, and it's just a one-step automated install. So this command is very convenient. Basically what it's doing here is downloading the script file contained in this URL here. So if you want to just go to that URL, you can, and you'll see the script. So all of this text is basically downloaded and deposited into a script file on your machine, and it runs through all of this code and pipes it. That's what this command is. This straight line is called a pipe. So it sends that entire script to the bash, to the shell. So it's basically just run this entire script in my shell. That's what that's doing. And then for piVPN, it also has a one-step install. I noticed that it was giving me some problems when I tried this out before. So we're actually going to head to documentation down here and go to installation. And we're going to do method 3, which is cloning the repository. So basically copy the code onto my machine first and then run it in bash. So instead of a direct pipe that was giving me some issues. All right, so back to the terminal, you'll see that it's all good to go. So if we head over to this guy and copy this command, we do need to fix it a little bit. We're gonna put sudo in front, paste our command, and then in front of bash, we're also gonna put sudo. That way this command is running as administrator, and when it pipes it into bash, it's also running as administrator. So press enter on that. And you notice you are running as root. Nice little Raspberry Pi icon here. It's gonna run some updates. Let me shrink this a bit. Yeah, it's gonna run some updates and then install it. So the reason why we opened up port 80 is because piHole has a web server that's called FTL, I think. And we wouldn't be able to get to it if we didn't open port 80. But actually we'll have to do something else as well, because we did open port 80 on Oracle side, but we have not opened port 80 on the Ubuntu side. So before I get to that, so this is the installer. We can just press enter on that. It's just explaining, piHole is free. It needs a static IP. We already have one, right? That's done for us by Oracle. We don't need to worry about that. Just go using your arrow keys on your keyboard and then go to continue. I'm partial to Cloudflare, but you can pick any DNS provider you want here. I just like Cloudflare. This is the block list. So piHole, what it does, it's a black hole DNS. I didn't even explain that. So just like their picture here, a black hole, right? Meaning that it will route malicious DNS IP addresses. And instead of sending it to where you're supposed to go, it's going to send it to nowhere, to a black hole. So this is a list of known malicious websites that the piHole DNS will have in its database, basically, and it will route those DNS requests to nothing, so you don't accidentally go to some malicious site. And it's also for ad blocks as well. Query logging is just keeping a record of all your DNS requests. You can do this if you want to just have anonymous mode, and I'm using the space bar there to select the option that I want. So show everything will let you log into the web interface and view every DNS request, and then anonymous mode will hide every DNS request. So your choice entirely, it really doesn't affect anything. And go to continue, and it's going to just finish the install there. And while that's going, I have this next link here, which is enabling network traffic to Ubuntu in Oracle. And there's a lot of information here, but what we're concerned with is really that we did allow those ports in our security list. So we did that portion, but we do need to allow it in Ubuntu. So in the host itself, there is a program that's called IP tables, and there is some new ports that we're going to have to open, right? So this is their example on opening port 8080, but we're going to open port 80 and port 51820, if you remember those two, because of piHole and piVPN. So this is just letting you know the configuration is done. This IP address is the private, so this is not going to work for us. But you will have to remember this password here. So once you press enter, here's the password. You can copy it from here. And then if you want to double check that everything is working, so head over to your public IP address. So I'm going to copy that first. And then /admin. And it is not working quite yet. And the reason for that is we have not done this. So even though we've allowed it in Oracle, we've allowed that port, we have not allowed it on the firewall of Ubuntu itself. So if we head over to what they tell us to here, which is this directory, this file here, rules.v4, we can modify some things very quickly. So we're going to do sudo nano /etc /IP tables /rules.v4. Let me just double check. Yeah, and then press enter on that. And so this is the configuration page or configuration file for IP tables, which is kind of like our firewall on Ubuntu. So this line here is the one we're interested in, the one that says D port 22 accept. So we're basically going to copy that and then add or modify it to our two ports that we want. So to copy, I don't see a copy. These are the commands down here. So we can just do a cut. So this caret symbol means control. So hold with the control key on your keyboard and press K. So that will cut this line out. And then I'm just going to put paste so I can put it back and then paste 2 more times. So control K to cut and control U to paste. And now we have our 2 new lines that we can just modify really quickly. So using the arrow keys on your keyboard, I'm going to change the first one or leave the first one alone, change the second one to port 80. So now we're accepting TCP port 80. And then the third one, if you remember, that was actually UDP, and that is port 51820. So that's for piVPN, which we haven't installed yet, but we're going to. So now we have port TCP 80 and port UDP 51820 that are allowed through our IP tables. To save this, just use Control X to exit. To ask you to save, press Y for yes, leave the name as it is, so just press enter, and that's it. We've saved our file. And the last thing we need to do is actually this command here, sudo iptables restore. So basically update my file, update my IP tables using the new rules in my file. That's what this command does. And oh, UDP match requires -p UDP. So let me get back in there. Oh, yeah, over here. My bad. UDP. Oops. UDP. And Control X to exit and enter. There we go. Okay. So if you wanted to see that one more time, this third line, there's 2 spots. So after the P, that's UDP. And then after the -M, that was also UDP. So those 2 changes you need to make. You can check your IP tables if you just do sudo iptables -L, and that will show you all of the rules. So if you scroll up just a bit, you should have the rule that's accept for SSH, accept for HTTP, and accept UDP for 51820. And also you should put them where I mentioned, like right next to each other near the top, because the rules are from a top-down sequence. So if you put the rule at the bottom, these other reject rules will take effect first, and so it won't have any effect. So make sure you put them near the top. Okay, that's it. So if we go back here, this should work now, hopefully, unless it changed. Oh yeah, make sure it's HTTP, not HTTPS. There we go. And if you forgot your password, you can just scroll up. There it is. So copy that. And you can change it if you need to. It tells you right here. This can be changed using piHole set password. So if you wanted to change it, you can do it via the command line. And I think you can also do it from here. So yeah, once you're logged in, I think if you go to tools, is it settings, system? or is it, where is it at? It might be through the command line only. I forgot. Maybe you can just search that, but you can just leave the password as it is. So basically, this is our piHole setup here. You can tell that it's active if, yeah, basically this control here is, if it gives it the option to disable, that means it's active. Also green up here, active. Right now, we don't have any way to use this, however, so that's why we need to install piVPN. So we're gonna copy this first one on method 3 over here, and just head to the bottom here. Yep, and do that one. You don't need sudo for this because this is just downloading this file from GitHub and cloning it to your computer. So what it's doing is actually cloning the entire directory. So if you do an ls command, you'll notice now you have this piVPN directory. So basically it copied the entire github.com/piVPN directory, but only this file, and then put that file into your computer. And then we're going to run this command with sudo. Oops, forgot to copy. So sudo bash, so into bash, run this install script that's contained within this this directory, piVPN/auto-install/, that's the script file. And it'll run through its installation here, so it's just running update first, and it's going to give us an interactive install just like piHole did. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it's running some updates, installing some prerequisites. Shouldn't take too long, I don't think. Yeah, there we go. So this is guiding you through the whole process. Transform your Raspberry Pi, which it's just a Ubuntu server, so it's the same-ish, don't worry about that, into an OpenVPN or WireGuard server. So press enter. It needs a static IP, that's okay. Do you want to force routing to block the leakage? Might as well. We don't have IP6 enabled, so it's not a big deal. They will not set a static IP for us. We already have one, so we don't need to worry about that. Choose the local user that will hold your OVPN configurations. We want to choose Ubuntu. That's our user that we're using. So press the arrow keys and press space to select Ubuntu and press OK. And then we're going to stick with WireGuard, so that's already selected. So press tab and press OK. And I think that's it. Oh, no, there's a couple more steps. There we go. So this is the port. So again, if you wanted to change this, feel free, but then you'll have to change it in Oracle's infrastructure and in the IP tables as well. So that's just the default 51820. Press OK on that. Yes. And this is the good part here, because actually piHole, piVPN work together. So if you install piHole first, then piVPN will detect that piHole is installed, and it will use that DNS as its DNS for the VPN. So when you connect to this VPN, you will also have ad blocking and malware protection via DNS. So that's great just for that. And use that public DNS, or use that public IP. I mean, that's our public IP, right? 152. That's what we're going to use. Press OK. Keys will now be generated. That's fine. Yeah, this is letting you know that you should enable unattended upgrades, meaning you don't have to manually update security patches. And because you're putting this server on the internet, that's a good idea. So yes. And that's it. Reboot after installation, you can press yes. I'm just going to push no for now because I'd have to wait for it to come back. But it's basically ready to go. So to add a new user, go to piVPN add, space add. Enter the client IP. You can leave that blank. You don't have to specify. Enter the name. I'm just going to put me. Call it, it's for you, so call it whatever you like. So now you have a new user. And in order to actually connect to this, there's various ways. If you're connecting from your phone, for example, if you head over to the, let's say the Apple App Store WireGuard, I don't know if that'll show me. Yeah, there we go. So if you're like an iPhone, they have WireGuard app. The same is available on Android. And then you can add a user. So if you click this plus button here, it will let you scan. One of the options that it will give you is to scan a QR code. So if you do this piVPN-QR, whoops, I typed that wrong, piVPN-QR, it's going to ask you which client do you want to show the QR code for. So I'm going to push 1 because that's the only one, that's me, and press enter, and it's going to show you this QR code that you can then scan with your phone, and it will automatically add the profile. That's enormous. Let me shrink that. It will automatically add the profile to your phone. Yeah, so I'm going to scan this with my phone. Feel free to scan it, but by the time you're watching this, I will have already deleted this server, so it's not going to work for you. So there we go. I scanned it with my phone. I'm just going to call it example on my phone, hit save, and then I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to connect to it, and then if I go to piVPN, I forgot the command. If you just push piVPN, it shows you what you can do. L, so L, yeah, -L to list, and there's me. So I've connected. This is my public key, and I was just now, this is universal time, so I'm connected right now. So that just shows you it does work. Everything's great. Your server is ready to go. You can leave this running 24/7 in Oracle's cloud. Again, because it's free, there may be times where it will shut down because Oracle shut it down. So you may have to come back in there and basically just turn it back on. And if it ever gets deleted or for whatever reason, you can always follow this guide. There may be minor changes you may have to account for, but otherwise it shouldn't be anything major. Once you're done, you can just type exit on your terminal and you will disconnect from your server. And that's it, we're done. So again, all these links will be provided in the instructions or in the assignment page. So if you have any questions at all, of course, I can help you guys out. And as I mentioned, even though you may have to put in a credit card, you can just opt for a fully free account. So you will never have to pay anything, at least with Oracle's cloud. Let me know if you got questions, and if not, good luck.